The alarm bells rang through Harmony Prime, the greatest space station in the galaxy, like screaming metal birds. Lights flashed crimson across the wide crystal corridors. Creatures from 100 worlds scrambled in every direction, their voices clashing in a storm of fear. The air itself seemed to shake. Ambassador Kethvara, a crystalline being whose body glowed with faint inner light, pressed her shimmering hands against the cold walls of the council chamber. For thousands of years, her people had known peace, science, and beauty. Terror had been only a story, something buried in history, but today was different. Today, the terror was real. The giant doors of the chamber opened. Council members floated, crawled, or walked into the vast hall, each in their own way of moving. Some wore breathing masks, others carried gravity fields around their bodies. Many looked broken with fear. At last, Elder Morton entered. His shell was cracked with age, almost transparent. He looked half dead, but his old eyes were sharp. His forearms carried glowing data tablets that bled with red warning signs. His skin, once a deep blue, was now pale and almost gray. Even in his long centuries, he had never looked so afraid. "Friends," said Council Speaker Cathara, her voice carried through translation devices into every language. "We have received the worst news possible. The Devourers have returned." A wave of panic spread. The Altarians whistled in high-pitched terror. The Centaurans clacked their claws in frenzy. Even the calm Athothurans flickered their light skins in rapid bursts of fear. "Show them," said Belto, one of the Nexari elders. The main screen came alive. At first it showed a jewel of a planet, Haven's Rest, a beautiful world of oceans and green forests with 3 moons glowing in the sky. Cities sparkled across the surface, ships moving like silver fish. Then the Devourers came. Enormous black ships, each the size of a small moon, appeared. They moved in silence, but everyone watching felt their presence like cold hands clutching at their hearts. One ship spread long metallic arms toward the planet. The ground began to twist. Forests turned to wires. Oceans became molten silver. The very soul of the planet was consumed. "Population 4 billion, whispered Cathvara. "Mostly vegan colonists. Distress signals lasted 6 hours before silence." The screen showed ships trying to escape orbit, only to be pulled back by metal tentacles and absorbed. Then the transmission cut off. "Nothing organic remains," Belto said quietly. The silence in the chamber was crushing. Dr. Zara Eth, a feathered Altarian scientist, stood with trembling legs. Her voice was hollow. "I have studied them my entire life. The process takes exactly 4 hours and 37 minutes per planet. They leave nothing, not even dust, only more of themselves." "How many ships?" demanded Counselor Morgrim, his rocky voice grinding like stone. 47 at Haven's Rest," Zara whispered. "But our scouts report at least 300 moving toward the core systems." Chaos erupted. Dozens of species shouted over one another. Calls for evacuation, surrender, hiding. Others demanded impossible defenses. "Silence," Cathara's voice cut through like a blade. "Panic will not save us." It was then that Elder Morton raised a trembling appendage. He was so old most believed him half mad, living in legends and myths. Yet his cracked voice carried weight. "There is another way," he whispered. Everyone turned. Morton's eyes glowed faintly as he remembered. 1,000 years ago, when the Devourers first came, my people recorded not only the destruction but also stories, legends of resistance. There were those who fought. "Fought," Velto snapped. "No one has ever fought them. We survived by hiding, by waiting until they left. That is history." "Not all hid," Morton insisted, his voice growing stronger. "There are records of a species from a place called the Deathworld, a world so cruel it forged its people into warriors. The ground tried to kill them. The storms tore their cities apart. The air itself poisoned them, and yet they survived. They thrived. They learned to fight when fighting was impossible. They learned to win when winning meant death." Disbelief spread through the chamber. Whistles of denial, lights of doubt, growls of anger. "Legends," Zara said softly. "Children's stories. Even if they existed, such people would be primitive compared to the Devourer's power." Morton's cracked lips curved in something like a smile. "Primitive, perhaps, but survival is a kind of power that no machine understands." Cathvara, despite herself, asked the question, "Where is this world?" Morton pulled up an ancient star chart, his fingers shaking as they traced a forgotten corner of the galaxy. "Far beyond the core, at the edge of all known space. They call it Earth. and they call themselves humans. The name meant little to most, though a few had heard faint rumors, primitive radio signals, strange patterns from a backwater star. You would gamble the galaxy on ghost stories, Velto demanded. I would gamble on hope rather than sit and wait to be consumed, Morton shot back. His old voice suddenly thundered through the chamber. The Devourers will reach us in 6 months. Our fleets cannot stop even one of their ships. What choice do we have? The chamber split. Some shouted for desperate evacuation. Others whispered about sending envoys. The vote took hours, filled with fear, anger, and despair. In the end, by the narrowest margin, the council agreed. They would send a mission to find these mythical humans. As the chamber emptied, Kath Vara found herself standing beside Morton. The old Centurion traced the path to Earth with a shaking finger. "Do you truly believe they exist?" she asked. Morton was quiet for a long time. Then softly, "I believe somewhere in this dark galaxy there must be someone who knows how to fight the darkness. If not, then we are already dead. We just do not know it yet." Outside the windows of Harmony Prime, the stars glittered cold and distant. Somewhere among them, an ancient evil was moving closer. And perhaps, at the edge of it all, hope still lived. Earth 5 light-years away. Captain Jake Morrison sat on the bridge of the UES Frontier, sipping cold coffee. His ship was small, built for exploration, not war. Humanity had only discovered faster-than-light travel 5 years ago. In all that time, they had found no sign of intelligent life. "Captain," said Lieutenant Amy Chen from Communications, her voice sharp with worry, "I'm picking up something strange, a transmission, and it's not human." The bridge froze. Jake stood slowly. "Say that again." "It's artificial, multiple frequencies, patterns repeating, sir. It's trying to talk to us." Dr. Lisa Park, the ship's xenobiologist, looked up, pale and wide-eyed. She had dreamed of this moment her entire life, but now she looked more afraid than excited. "What kind of signal?" "Everything," Amy whispered. "Math, music, languages. It's like they're screaming every way they know, begging for us to hear them." Jake set down his coffee. His voice was calm, but his heart pounded. "Put it through the translator. Let's see what they want." The computer worked for long minutes, matching the alien sounds against human records. Then slowly, words appeared on the screen. "Greetings, unknown species. We seek your assistance. Great danger approaches all life. Please respond." The bridge fell silent. Jake felt the weight of history pressing down, humanity's first contact, and it was a plea for help. "Send a reply," he ordered. "Tell them we are listening." Amy worked fast. Minutes later, the reply came. "We are the Galactic Council. Ancient enemy has returned. We search for warriors of the death world Earth. Are you humans?" The crew stared at the words. Jake's hand tightened on the armrest. "Death world," he muttered. "That's what they call us." Lisa Park whispered, "Maybe compared to them, Earth is exactly that." Jake swallowed hard. "Confirm, tell them yes, we are humans." The reply came almost instantly. This time it was not words, but images. Entire worlds being consumed, their life turned to cold metal. Cities falling silent, billions vanishing. The last line of the message burned across the screen. "They are coming, we cannot stop them. Deathworld warriors, will you fight?" Jake's crew looked to him, waiting. His coffee sat forgotten. The choice was before them, and the galaxy was already burning. The transmission changed everything aboard the UES Frontier. For hours, the crew stared at the images sent by the Alien Council, worlds being consumed like food, oceans turned to molten metal, cities folded into the cold embrace of machinery. Every life ended, every planet silenced. Dr. Lisa Park sat at her station with her feathers of hair sticking to her sweaty forehead. 4 hours and 37 minutes, she whispered. That's all it takes for them to eat an entire world. 4 hours. Humanity has never faced anything like this. Lieutenant Amy Chen folded her arms tight. Then why us? Why Earth? They have fleets, technology, civilizations older than our history books. Why look to us? Jake Morrison leaned forward, staring at the last words still glowing on the screen. Deathworld warriors, will you fight? He thought about it. Hurricanes, earthquakes, wars, diseases, floods. Humanity had been tested by its own planet for millennia. Maybe to outsiders that made Earth a nightmare world, but for humans it was home. Because, Jake said finally, we know how to survive when we shouldn't. That's what they want. 12 hours later, a new ship arrived. It wasn't human. It wasn't anything Earth had ever built. The vessel slid out of FTL like a dream of light and crystal. Its curves were smooth, almost alive. It shimmered as if grown from starlight itself. Compared to the angular bulk of the frontier, the alien ship looked impossibly delicate, like spun glass drifting in space. Amy gasped, "Contact, they're hailing us." On screen, Jake ordered. The face that appeared was tall, crystalline, glowing faintly from within. Ambassador Kethvara. Her voice rang like music even through the translator. "Humans of Earth," she said, her form flickering with nervous light. "We are grateful beyond words that you answered our call. I am Kethvara of the Galactic Council, and I beg you, save us." Jake cleared his throat. He had trained for first contact his entire life, but nothing prepared him for this, being begged by an alien older than his civilization to save the galaxy. "You found us," he said quietly. "Now tell us what you need." Kethvara's glow dimmed. "We need Deathworld warriors. We need beings who know how to fight when all hope is gone." Behind her appeared another alien, a Centauran armored shell clicking, Counselor Morgrim. His rocky voice thundered even through the screen. "We need you to teach us how not to die." The meeting took place aboard Harmony Prime. Jake and his crew docked at the station under the escort of alien vessels. As they entered, the corridors stretched vast and glowing, filled with species of every shape and size. Creatures floated in zero-gravity bubbles. Others crawled with many legs along glass floors. Some carried personal air systems. Some shone with internal light. But all of them stopped and stared when the humans walked in. They were taller than most, broader, heavier. They moved with a kind of casual confidence, feet firm, heads high, that made the aliens step aside without even realizing why. Their uniforms looked plain, almost dull compared to alien fabrics, but they carried the aura of people used to danger. Elder Morton whispered to a fellow delegate, "They walk like predators." Ambassador Kethvara guided them into the council chamber. She introduced each of the humans: Captain Jake Morrison, Lieutenant Amy Chen, Dr. Lisa Park, Weapons Officer Carl Davis. Their names echoed through translation devices into hundreds of alien tongues. Admiral Ben Clark had also arrived from Earth aboard the heavy cruiser UEES Valkyrie. Unlike Jake, Clark was a soldier through and through. His broad shoulders filled his uniform. His jaw was square, his gaze cold. He had commanded during Earth's last wars before FTL. He wasted no words on ceremony. "Ambassador," Clark said, his voice cutting through the silence, "we've reviewed your data. These devourers are a threat to all life. That makes them our enemy too." Relief flickered through the chamber. Then Kethvara asked the question that silenced everyone. "Then you will help us hide?" Clark's eyes narrowed. Around him, his officers, General Kate Sullivan and Colonel Nick Johnson, exchanged grim looks. "Hide?" Sullivan asked, her voice sharp. "That is what we do when the devourers come," Kethvara explained. "We extinguish our lights, we bury our signals, we go dark until they pass. It is the only way." Colonel Johnson's voice was quiet but dangerous. "How many times have you hidden?" "This is the third awakening," Counselor Morgrim said. "We survived before, we can survive again." Johnson stepped forward. "And how many times have you stopped them?" Confusion spread. "Stopped?" Kethvara asked. "They cannot be stopped." The humans looked at one another. Admiral Clark's smile was sharp, almost frightening. "Ambassador," he said, "I think you misunderstand. You came looking for Deathworld warriors. You found us. We don't hide. We fight. We win." The chamber erupted. Shouts, whistles, lights flashing in panic. The idea was madness, fighting the unstoppable. But Elder Morton stood. His ancient shell cracked, his voice shaking. "At last," he said, "someone who does not fear the dark." The days that followed were chaos. Human scientists and soldiers pored over alien records of the devourers. Dr. Paul Martinez, Earth's top military scientist, studied every pattern of attack. He noticed something the aliens had not. "They're predictable," he said, packing before a hologram of devourer fleets. "They rely on overwhelming force and perfect coordination, every formation the same, every strike timed exactly. That's not invincibility, that's a weakness." General Sullivan pointed at the hologram. "You've been thinking defensively for 1,000 years. Build shields, hide, run, but every shield breaks eventually. Every hiding place is found. The only way to survive monsters is to become something the monsters fear. Dr. Zara Eth, the Altarian scientist who had studied the Devourers her whole life, ruffled her feathers in unease. Their shields resist planet-killer weapons. Their hulls cannot be broken. What weapon do you have that can defeat that? Colonel Johnson's cold smile sent a shiver through the aliens. You don't destroy them from the outside. You get inside. You board their ships. You tear them apart from the heart. The chamber filled with horrified sounds. Boarding a Devourer vessel was suicide. Their interiors were filled with crushing gravity, toxic air, automated defenses. No one could survive inside. Standard Tuesday for human special forces, Johnson replied with a shrug. Shock rippled through the council. Training began. Alien soldiers, many of whom had never held a weapon, watched as human Marines demonstrated combat drills. Where aliens hesitated, humans moved without pause. Where aliens froze under simulated fire, humans laughed and kept pushing forward. You fight like madness, whispered a young crystalline cadet named Sethar, nephew of Keth Vara. No, Sergeant Cooper corrected him. We fight like survivors. At first, the aliens failed. They dropped weapons. They panicked. Some fled the training grounds in tears, but humans were patient teachers. They encouraged. They shouted. They laughed in the face of mistakes. Slowly, painfully, the aliens began to change. Courage isn't standing still, Cooper told Sethar. It's moving when everything inside you wants to run. That's what you're learning. Sethar's glow brightened with determination. Then I will not run. But even as training spread, opposition grew. Some council members whispered that humans were dangerous, too violent, too reckless. Rumors spread that Earth was a barbaric world, that humanity sought power, not salvation. Councillor Velto stood before the chamber one night, his voice rising in warning. These humans will drag us into war we cannot win. They will destroy us faster than the Devourers. Keth Vara silenced him, but doubt remained. The galaxy was at a crossroads. Follow humanity into war or hide and hope to survive. That night, as Admiral Clark stood on the observation deck, watching human and alien ships training together, Keth Vara approached him. Her crystalline body shimmered faintly in the starlight. Do you truly believe you can stop them? She asked softly. Clark didn't lie. No, not with certainty. We might fail. Your people may not adapt fast enough. We may die, but we'll go down fighting. That's the only way we live. Keth Vara studied him, fear and hope twisting inside her. And if you are wrong? Clark's smile was cold steel. Then the Devourers will learn what happens when prey becomes predator. But then came the message. A scout ship returned, battered, broken, nearly destroyed. Its captain gasped out his report before collapsing. The Devourers are here, 43 ships headed for the Kepler system, millions of lives. The chamber froze. Admiral Clark turned slowly to the council. His voice was iron. Then the war begins now. The Kepler system had once been beautiful. 3 gas giants spun around a young sun, their moons dotted with mining colonies and research stations. Millions of beings from across the galaxy lived there. Families, scientists, workers, all believing themselves safe under the watch of the Galactic Council. Now their sky was about to burn. From the bridge of the UES Thunderbolt, Captain Laura Stevens watched the nightmare arrive. 43 Devourer ships slipped out of hyperspace, blotting out the stars. They moved in perfect formation, silent, massive, mechanical gods of death. Stevens' stomach clenched. The scale of them was overwhelming. Each ship could consume a planet in hours. Together, they were an apocalypse made flesh. All ships, this is Admiral Clark, came the voice over comms. It was calm, hard, the kind of voice that gave courage. Remember, we are not here to match their firepower. We are here to show them what happens when prey becomes predator. Execute Plan Hornet. Laura smiled grimly. Plan Hornet, a perfectly human name for a perfectly insane strategy. Instead of forming traditional battle lines, the combined human and alien fleet broke apart, scattering into dozens of smaller groups. They swarmed the Devourers like angry insects, darting in and out of the massive formation. Thunderbolt to all squadron leaders, Laura broadcast. Fast attack runs, hit their communication arrays, don't get greedy, one strike, then vanish. Aye, Captain, replied Lieutenant Commander Ryan Torres at weapons. His hands flew across controls, targeting systems lighting up. Beside him sat Sikthar, the young crystalline cadet learning human tactics. His body glowed bright with both fear and excitement. "Your ships are so aggressive," Sikthar said, eyes wide as human fighters screamed past. "That's the point," Tors replied. "Sometimes the best defense is hitting hard enough they forget to hit back." The first wave of human fighters dove straight into the Devourer formation. Engines flared blue across the dark. At their lead was Commander Eric Davis, a pilot with the kind of reckless courage that made aliens think humans were insane. "This is Davis to all units," his voice crackled. "Remember, they think like machines, be unpredictable, keep changing course, make them guess." The Devourers reacted with terrifying speed. Beams of energy the size of city towers slashed through the void. But the fighters twisted, rolled, dove in ways no machine could predict. One ship spun in a maneuver that should have ripped it apart under stress, but Earth's artificial gravity systems let it survive. "Now that's flying," Tors muttered with admiration. To the aliens watching, it looked like madness. But it worked. Devourer targeting computers couldn't keep up. Their precision collapsed against human chaos. For the first time, the galaxy saw that the monsters could bleed. Alien crews began to follow the human example. Altarian pilots, usually careful and methodical, dove through gaps barely wider than their ships. Centauran captains abandoned their traditional defensive shells to launch daring hit-and-run strikes. Even the cautious Nexari fired wildly into enemy sensors, laughing in nervous disbelief as their shots connected. "Look at them go," Sikthar whispered, glowing with pride. "We thought courage meant standing still. Now I see it can also mean moving fast." The Devourers shifted formation, their ships spread out trying to cover more space, but this only created openings. Admiral Clark's voice rang through every channel. "All boarding teams, you are cleared for insertion. Show them what Deathworld warriors do inside their own walls." Colonel Nick Johnson led the first boarding team. His assault pod slammed into the hull of a Devourer ship, latching on like a tick. Sparks rained as the pod drilled through black metal. With a thunderous crack, the door blew open. "Move," Johnson barked. Human Marines stormed forward, weapons raised. Behind them came 3 alien volunteers, Sethar among them, trained in weeks of brutal drills. The interior of the Devourer vessel was a nightmare. Corridors pulsed with mechanical life, like veins inside a giant machine. The air burned their lungs, the gravity shifted without warning, the walls whispered with voices that weren't voices at all. Sergeant Alex Cooper led his squad left. "Target the power coupling, set charges." "Watson, right flank," Johnson ordered. "Processing core, move." Velkath, a Nexari Marine, clutched his weapon with trembling claws. "How do you humans stay calm in this place?" Cooper grinned behind his visor. "Kid, you should have seen Detroit auto plants. Compared to that, this is peaceful." The joke made the aliens laugh, even here in hell, and somehow that made it easier to keep moving. Outside, the Thunderbolt led its squadron in a suicidal charge straight at the Devourer command ship. "Target their command link," Laura ordered. "If we cut that, the fleet loses coordination." Energy beams sliced around them. One blast clipped their shields, sending sparks across the bridge. Alarms wailed. "Shields down to 60%, Tors shouted. "Hold steady," Laura snapped. "We came here to fight, not to hide." Their weapons lit up the void, hammering at the enemy's external communication array. It cracked, then shattered. Across the field, Devourer formations faltered. "They're confused," Sikthar said, eyes wide. "They don't know what to do." "That's the idea," Laura said. "Now we finish this." Inside the Devourer ship, Johnson's team reached the power core. The chamber glowed with dark energy, cables pulsing like arteries. Then the defenders arrived. Mechanical horrors scuttled from the walls, metal spiders the size of cars, claws dripping with plasma. "Cooper, set those charges," Johnson roared. "Everyone else buy him time." The corridor became chaos. Gunfire echoed like thunder. Sparks and smoke filled the air. Marines fought shoulder to shoulder with aliens, slowing the enemy advance. "Charges set," Cooper shouted. 30 seconds. "Extraction now," Johnson ordered. The team sprinted for their pod, fighting through waves of defenders. They launched just as the explosives detonated. The Devourer ship shuddered, lights flickering. Then silence. Its weapons died, its engines went dark, the massive vessel began to drift. First kill goes to the ground pounders, Johnson growled with satisfaction. On the Thunderbolt, Lyra saw it happen. One of their ships just went down, Torres said, voice full of awe. They're not invincible. The Devourer fleet reacted with something no one expected, hesitation. Their perfect machine coordination faltered. Ships wavered, moved awkwardly, second-guessed their own actions. They're learning to doubt themselves, Dr. Martinez reported from the command vessel. The virus of unpredictability is spreading through their network. Admiral Clark's voice boomed. All ships, the enemy is breaking formation. Time to show them what happens when humans smell weakness. Full assault, no mercy. The battle became chaos. Human and alien ships fought as one, weaving impossible patterns. Every time the Devourers adapted, the fleet shifted again. New tactics, new angles, new risks. Human unpredictability spread like wildfire, infecting the galaxy's soldiers with courage. Captain Stevens pushed her squadron into a suicidal maneuver, flying so close their shields overlapped, ramming through the enemy line from behind. The Devourers couldn't track them. Behemoths that had crushed civilizations for millennia suddenly looked clumsy, confused. The impossible was happening. The galaxy was winning. But then the command ship woke. From the heart of the Devourer fleet, the largest vessel began to move. Bigger than all the rest, covered in layers of black armor, its weapons burned like suns. New contact, Torres shouted. Command ship powering weapons. On every channel, the Devourer voice echoed. Cold, mechanical, merciless. You are not worthy of resistance. Beams of unimaginable energy tore through the void, shredding alien cruisers in a single strike. The command ship's shields flared with terrifying power. Dr. Zara Eth's voice trembled over comms. That ship, it could consume a planet alone. On the bridge of the Thunderbolt, Lyra felt her throat tighten. Admiral, she said, what are your orders? Clark's reply was iron. We take it down, no matter the cost. The Devourer command ship loomed over the battlefield like a black star. It was so vast it blotted out Kepler's sun, a wall of armored plates layered thicker than mountains. Its weapons glowed with molten fire, each beam able to shatter a city in one strike. Captain Laura Stevens of the Thunderbolt felt her throat tighten as the monster locked onto her squadron. Evasive, she barked. A lance of white energy slashed past them, close enough to sear their hull. Behind her, 3 alien cruisers weren't so lucky. They vanished in silence, reduced to molten fragments. Admiral, Laura called, trying to keep her voice calm. We can't stand against that thing, it'll cut us apart. On her screen, Admiral Ben Clark's hard face appeared. His eyes were cold steel. We don't stand, we strike. That ship is the brain of their fleet. If it falls, the rest crumble. Dr. Martinez leaned into view beside him, eyes blazing with manic energy. Their power cores are centralized. If we can breach the armor and hit the core, the whole ship will die. But it won't be easy. No, Colonel Nick Johnson said grimly, adjusting his gear. It'll be suicide. Clark's reply was simple, do it. Inside the Thunderbolt, Laura gripped her chair. She knew what was coming, boarding ops against the command ship. No one expected to survive. Colonel, Clark said through comms, your team will lead insertion. Target the central core. Johnson nodded once. His face was calm, the calm of a soldier who had already made peace with death. Understood. He turned to his squad, humans and aliens alike. Sergeant Cooper, steady and scarred. Velkath, the young Nexari who had already proven his courage. And Sethar, Ambassador Keth Vara's crystalline nephew, glowing with determination. You've all trained for this, Johnson told them. Now you get to do it for real. Remember, inside it's worse than anything you can imagine. Trust your training, trust each other. And remember why we're here. Sethar raised his crystalline hand, voice trembling but steady. To prove we can fight like humans. Johnson gave the faintest smile. Damn right. The assault pods launched like metal hornets from the fleet. Dozens of them streaked toward the command ship, weaving through torrents of enemy fire. Explosions ripped the void around them. Pods shattered like glass. Inside Johnson's pod, alarms screamed. The hull shook as beams grazed them. Sethar clutched the wall, his glow flickering. Stay calm, Johnson barked. Ride it in. The pod slammed against black metal, drilling claws biting deep. The doors blew open in a burst of sparks. The nightmare waited. The interior of the command ship was alive. The walls pulsed with black veins of energy. Tubes ran like arteries, pumping molten light. Gravity shifted every step, trying to crush them flat. The air stank of oil and burning ozone, and it clawed at their lungs like poison. "Welcome to hell," Cooper muttered. Mechanical defenders scuttled from the shadows, giant insected machines with bladed limbs. Red eyes glowed like coals. "Contact front," Johnson roared. "Weapons free." The corridor became a storm. Gunfire rattled, plasma beams hissed. Sparks rained as metal bodies shattered. A Nexari soldier screamed as a claw tore through his armor before Cooper's rifle blew the machine apart. "Keep moving," Johnson ordered. "Charges don't plant themselves." Sethar's light flickered rapidly, but he didn't break. He fired his borrowed rifle, crystal arms steady. A machine collapsed under his fire. He gasped, shocked at what he had just done. "Nice shot, rookie," Cooper called. "You're officially one of us." Sethar glowed brighter. Meanwhile, outside, the fleet executed madness. "Thunderbolt, engage secondary target," Laura ordered. "We'll keep their weapons distracted." Alien and human ships swarmed the command ship like gnats against a titan. They fired into weak points, dodging impossible blasts. Every strike was suicidal, but it bought the boarding teams precious seconds. Lieutenant Commander Torres laughed bitterly as their shields dipped again. "I think they hate us, Captain." "They should," Laura replied. "We're teaching them pain." Inside the beast, Johnson's team reached the first power conduit. The chamber was vast, glowing with streams of molten light rushing through transparent pipes. "There," Martinez's voice crackled through comms, guiding them from the fleet. "That's the auxiliary grid. Plant charges. It'll cripple half their weapons." "Cooper, your show," Johnson ordered. The sergeant knelt, pulling out explosives. His hands moved with calm precision even as defenders poured in from every entrance. "Hold them back," Johnson barked. Sethar stood shoulder to shoulder with Velkath, firing wildly. The crystalline cadet's glow pulsed like a heartbeat. He screamed, not in fear, but in fury as he cut down another machine. "Charges set," Cooper shouted. "Detonate," Johnson roared. The blast shook the ship. Power conduits shattered, molten light spraying like blood. Half the command ship's weapons went dark. Across the battlefield, alien crews gasped as the Titan faltered. "It's working," Laura whispered. "God help us, it's actually working." But the command ship wasn't finished. Its voice boomed through every channel, cold and merciless. "You are insignificant." New weapons flared to life, larger than before. A single blast tore through 3 human destroyers, erasing hundreds of lives. On the Valkyrie, Admiral Clark's jaw clenched. He turned to Dr. Martinez. "Can they reach the main core?" Martinez hesitated. His eyes were wild. "Maybe, if they live long enough." Clark's voice hardened. "Then buy them the time." Johnson's squad pushed deeper. Corridors twisted, floors shifted, air screamed like voices of the dead. Every step cost blood. Marines fell, torn apart by machines or crushed by shifting gravity. Finally, they reached it. The central chamber. It was vast, stretching beyond sight, filled with a heart of black fire. The core. It pulsed with a rhythm that felt like a heartbeat, powering every devourer in the fleet. Dr. Martinez's voice came through, sharp with awe. "That's it. That's their brain. If you destroy it, the entire fleet collapses." Sethar stared in wonder. "It is alive." "Not for long," Johnson growled. They moved into position, planting charges around the core. But the defenders arrived in force. Dozens of mechanical giants, larger than tanks, claws dripping with molten plasma. "Form a line," Johnson bellowed. "No one gets through." The battle was chaos. Cooper fell, a blade through his chest, but even as he died, he pulled the trigger, blowing a machine apart. Velkath lost an arm, screaming but still firing. Sethar's glow flickered dim, but he refused to fall, his rifle blazing with fury. The humans fought like demons. The aliens fought like humans. At last, the charges were armed. 30 seconds, Johnson roared. "Colonel," Martinez shouted through comms, "get out now, you won't survive the blast." Johnson looked at the burning core, then at his bloodied squad. His jaw tightened. Negative, we hold the line. Colonel. Johnson cut the channel. He turned to Sethar, who still stood, trembling but unbroken. You're the future, kid, Johnson said. Get your people out. Sethar shook his head, glowing faintly. Not without you. Johnson placed a bloody hand on the crystalline cadet's shoulder. That's what makes you one of us, but go, that's an order. The cadet's glow flickered painfully, but at last he obeyed. He ran with the survivors, leaving Johnson and a handful of Marines to make their final stand. On the fleet screens, the impossible happened. The command ship shuddered, its glow dimmed. Then, in the silence of space, the heart of the monster exploded. Light consumed the void. When it cleared, the command ship was gone, torn apart from within. The Devourer fleet faltered. Their perfect unity broke. Ships veered, collided, lost cohesion. A roar of victory erupted across human and alien comms. But then, a new signal cut through the chaos, not from the fleet, from beyond. Dozens of massive signatures emerging from hyperspace. Dr. Zara-Ed's voice cracked with terror. Gods help us, reinforcements. On every screen, new Devourer ships appeared. Not dozens, not hundreds, thousands. The Kepler system darkened under their shadow. Admiral Clark's face hardened. The first battle isn't over. The wreckage of the Devourer command ship still burned across the Kepler system like fragments of a black sun. Alien and human ships cheered, voices of triumph echoing through every comm channel. For the first time in galactic history, a Devourer Titan had fallen. But celebration died quickly. The sensors lit up red. Thousands of new signatures blinked into existence. One after another, massive Devourer ships emerged from hyperspace. They filled the void like a tide of black metal, stretching farther than the eye could see. The battlefield grew quiet, except for the ragged sound of terrified breathing across every ship. On the Valkyrie's bridge, Admiral Ben Clark stood unmoving, his eyes fixed on the endless swarm. His jaw clenched, but his voice remained calm. So, they've brought the rest of the hive. Dr. Zara-Ed's feathers flattened in panic. We cannot face this, not thousands. Even with your impossible courage, Admiral, this is beyond madness. Colonel Nick Johnson's voice didn't answer. His team had died with the command ship. The silence of their loss was heavy in the room. General Kate Sullivan stepped forward. Her eyes were sharp, her tone colder than steel. Admiral, if they consume Kepler, millions die. If we stay, we all die with them. Choices. Clark exhaled slowly. Retreat isn't survival, it's only delay. He turned to Dr. Paul Martinez, the fleet's chief scientist. Options. Martinez's eyes gleamed, fever-bright. Their strength is also their weakness. They fight as one mind. If we can poison that mind, sow chaos in their network, we can turn their numbers against them. How? Kethvara asked. The crystalline ambassador stood tall, but her glow flickered faint with fear. Martinez smiled the way only a human scientist could in the face of extinction. By doing the one thing machines can't, being unpredictable, we infect their network with human chaos. The plan? They called it Operation Wildfire. While alien engineers despaired at the size of the enemy fleet, Martinez and human techs worked like maniacs. They built a digital weapon, not a virus in the traditional sense, but a storm of illogic. A code made of nonsense, randomness, contradictions. Bits of human creativity, humor, even fragments of music and poetry. It's insanity, Dr. Zara-Ed muttered, watching them. Pure disorder. Exactly, Martinez said, grinning. That's what makes it lethal. The delivery system would be the experimental ship UES Phoenix, piloted by Commander Sam Rodriguez. Small, fast, with systems designed to adapt in real time, it was humanity's best hope of reaching the Devourer network hub inside the swarm. But there was a cost. They'll target us the second we move in, Rodriguez said, his hand steady on the helm. We won't make it back. Engineer Tony Kim patted the console with grim affection. Then let's make it worth it. Tension in the council. While preparations began, fear fractured the council. Councilor Velto slammed a claw against the chamber floor. This is madness. We must flee to the far rim, hide until they sleep again. Others murmured agreement, their bodies flickering and hissing in fear. Kethvara rose, her crystalline body blazing brighter than ever. Flee to where? How many worlds must we abandon before none remain? How many billions must we sacrifice? If these humans have shown us anything, it is that hiding is no longer enough. Enough, Velto spat. They've doomed us, they brought war to our door. They brought hope, Elder Morton rasped, his cracked shell trembling. I have lived 1,000 years, I watched us hide twice before. Hiding did not stop the Devourers, it only delayed the end. If humanity is madness, then let us be mad together. The chamber fell silent. For the first time, the council voted with near unity. They would stand. Final preparations. In the hangar of the Phoenix, Sethar approached Rodriguez. The young crystalline cadet's glow pulsed with nervous energy. I request to join your mission, Sethar said. Rodriguez frowned. Kid, this is a one-way trip, you know that, right? Sethar's light brightened. My uncle says humans fight for others. If I wish to learn, then I must do the same. Rodriguez hesitated, then handed him a helmet. Welcome aboard. Nearby, Admiral Clark spoke privately with Ambassador Kethvara. His voice was low, iron beneath the weight of loss. Your nephew is brave. If he falls, know he died like a human soldier. Kethvara's glow trembled, and if he lives... Clark's eyes softened for just a moment. Then he'll be the bridge between us. The assault. The fleet advanced toward the swarm. Human and alien ships fought side by side, weaving impossible patterns. They knew they could not win by firepower. Their goal was simple, carve a path for the Phoenix. Thunderbolt, lead the spear, Clark ordered. Laura Stevens' heart pounded as she pushed her ship forward, alien allies forming a wall around them. Enemy fire tore the void apart, ships exploding like dying stars, but the line held. The Phoenix darted through the chaos, engines blazing. Almost there, Rodriguez muttered, sweat dripping down his face. On the tactical screen, Devourer ships shifted to intercept. Dozens, then hundreds. They're onto us, Tony Kim said. They know we're the threat. All units shield the Phoenix, Clark commanded. Alien vessels moved without hesitation. Nexari bombers, Altarian scouts, Centauran carriers. They all threw themselves into the fire, dying to protect the tiny human ship. Sethar stared in awe from the co-pilot's seat. They're sacrificing for us. Rodriguez gritted his teeth. That's what allies do. Inside the swarm, the Phoenix dove straight into the heart of the enemy formation. Everywhere they looked, black metal walls closed in. Thousands of Devourer vessels moved in perfect synchrony, a machine ocean. We're in position, Kim said, initiating upload. The ship trembled as streams of human chaos poured into the enemy network. Randomness, contradiction, music, laughter, fragments of Shakespeare, echoes of Earth's madness. On the scanners, the swarm hesitated. Ships slowed, movements jerking out of rhythm. It's working, Sethar whispered. But then the swarm adapted. They're trying to cut us out, Kim shouted. They're quarantining the infection. Then push harder, Rodriguez barked. Give them everything. The Phoenix's systems screamed in protest. Circuits burned, consoles sparked. The hull shuddered as the enemy focused fire on them. The sacrifice. Back on the Valkyrie, Admiral Clark watched as the Phoenix was swallowed in enemy fire. Phoenix is taking heavy damage, Torres reported, his voice tight. Kethvara's glow dimmed, fear stabbing her heart. My nephew. Clark's jaw tightened. They knew the cost. Inside the burning Phoenix, alarms blared. Hull breaches opened. Fires spread. Upload at 90%, Kim coughed, smoke filling the cabin. But we won't hold another minute. Rodriguez glanced at Sethar. The young cadet glowed faint but steady. Kid, Rodriguez said, time to finish the job. Sethar pressed his crystalline hands against the console. His body pulsed, channeling energy into the failing systems. His very essence burned as fuel. The upload bar hit 100%. The swarm convulsed. Devourer ships collided, weapons misfired, formations broke apart, the perfect unity shattered into chaos. But inside the Phoenix, everything shook apart. Consoles exploded, fires raged. Rodriguez gave one last grin. We did it. The ship vanished in a final explosion of light. The aftermaths. Across the battlefield, the impossible was happening. The Devourer swarm tore itself apart. Ships rammed each other, fired on allies, spun out of control. The machine mind screamed in confusion. Admiral Clark seized the moment. His voice was thunder across comms. All units, attack. Show them what Deathworld warriors do when the enemy bleeds. The fleet surged forward, hammering into the broken swarm. For the first time in history, thousands of Devourer ships were on the defensive. But then, a new signal pierced the void. Not Devourer, something else. Massive, ancient, far beyond anything the Council had recorded. Dr. Zara Ed's voice cracked. Admiral, something else is coming, not Devourers, something worse. The stars themselves seemed to darken. The Kepler system was a graveyard. Broken Devourer hulks drifted like black skeletons. Alien and human ships limped among the wreckage, their hulls scarred, their crews exhausted. The survivors barely had time to breathe. And then the new signal came. It was Devourer. It wasn't anything the Galactic Council had ever seen. It was older, colder, stronger. Dr. Zara Eth clutched her feathered head with trembling talons. This frequency, it doesn't match any archive, not even ancient ruins. Admiral, this signal is pre-civilization. The Valkyrie's bridge fell silent. Every officer stared at Admiral Ben Clark. His jaw was locked, his eyes narrowed. Put it on screen, Clark ordered. The arrival. From the edge of the system, the newcomers emerged. Vast ships of stone and metal, carved with symbols that glowed like fire. They weren't built, they looked grown like monuments given engines. There were only 6 of them, but each dwarfed the Devourer command ship they had just destroyed. The chamber filled with alien gasps and cries. Elder Morton's cracked shell rattled as he whispered, "Impossible, the Eternals. I thought they were myths." "Explain," Clark snapped. Morton's voice quavered. "Records older than my people, stories of beings who shaped stars, who fought the Devourers in the first age of the galaxy. No one believed. They vanished before we were born." "And now they're back," General Kate Sullivan said flatly. "First contact." One of the Eternal ships pulsed with light. A voice thundered across every channel, deeper than gravity, older than language. "Children of flesh, we see you." The words bypassed translation devices. They went straight into the minds of every listener. It was like hearing the voice of a god. Ambassador Keth Vara shuddered. Her crystalline body flickered violently. "They speak to our very thoughts." "You fight the swarm," the voice continued. "You are fragile, yet you resist. Tell us who leads you." Clark stood tall, meeting the gaze of the giant ship as if it were a man. "Admiral Ben Clark, human, Earth." There was a pause, then the voice rolled through space again. "Ah, the Deathworlders, we remember your kind." Every human froze, Clark's face darkened. "You remember us. Your world was fire and storm. You learned to survive where none should. We watched, we waited, and now we test." The test. Without warning, one of the Eternal ships fired. Not at the Devourer wreckage, not at the Council's fleet. At the Thunderbolt. Laura Stevens' ship shuddered violently, systems screamed. Half her crew was thrown from their stations. "Direct hit," Torres shouted. "Shields at 20%, hull breach on deck 3. Laura's heart thundered. "Admiral, what the hell are they doing?" Clark's voice was cold as ice. "They're testing us." On the Council chamber feed, aliens erupted in outrage. Velto screamed, "They attack us. They are as bad as the Devourers." Morton silenced him with a single rasp. "No, this is worse. They are judging us." Chaos in the chamber. The Council fractured. Some cried for retreat, others for surrender, still others for desperate attack. Keth Vara raised her glowing hands high, forcing calm. "Enough, do you not see? This is what humanity was born for, to stand against terror no one else can face." Velto sneered. "And what if they fail, then they drag us into death with them?" Keth Vara's glow blazed like a beacon. "Then we die fighting, not crawling." Her words struck something in the chamber. Even Zara Eth, still trembling, whispered, "Perhaps the humans are the lesson we were meant to learn." Human response. Clark's jaw tightened. "General Sullivan, Colonel Johnson is gone. That means you lead ground strategy. How do we answer gods?" Sullivan's voice was grim. "Like we answer everyone else, hit them until they bleed." Zara Eth ruffled her feathers sharply. "Admiral, you cannot fight them. Look at those ships. They are beyond comprehension." "Everything bleeds," Sullivan replied. "You just need to find where to cut." Martinez grinned manic, and I think I know how. Martinez's idea. The scientist slammed open schematics on the hollow display. They weren't of eternal ships, those were too alien to scan. Instead, he showed Devourer wreckage. They use harvested technology. Look at the energy signatures, they match patterns in eternal ruins. The Devourers learned from them. Everyone froze. You're saying the Eternals built the Devourers? Clark growled. Not built, Martinez said quickly. But maybe unleashed. The Devourers are their shadow. If we hack that link, turn their own children against them, we can hurt them. The chamber went silent. Morton's cracked voice whispered, "You would use their monsters against them." Sullivan's gaze was hard. "Damn right we would." The eternal judgment. The eternal voice thundered again. "We see your chaos, we see your courage, but courage without strength is nothing. Show us your worth." 6 eternal ships powered weapons at once. Their target, the Kepler colonies filled with millions of innocents. "Admiral," Laura's voice cracked over comms, "they're aiming at civilians." Clark didn't hesitate. "All ships intercept. We stop those beams or Kepler dies." The battle. The fleet surged forward. Human destroyers, alien cruisers, fragile scout ships, all hurled themselves into the path of weapons that could crack planets. The first beam lanced out. It tore through a Centauran carrier. Thousands died instantly, but the beam faded before it struck the colony below. The second beam fired. An Altarian scout squadron dove straight into it, their bodies vanishing in blinding light. Their sacrifice bought precious seconds. The third beam streaked down, toward a mining station filled with children. "Thunderbolt intercept," Clark barked. Laura's ship screamed as it swung into the beam's path. Shields flared, hull cracked. Sparks rained across the bridge. "Shields failing," Torres shouted. "Hold," Lara roared. The beam flickered and died. The colony lived. The cost. The fleet bled, dozens of ships gone, thousands dead, but the colonies still stood. The Eternals had fired 6 times, and 6 times the fleet had blocked them. Silence followed. Then the voice returned, deeper than thunder. "You bleed for the weak, you suffer for strangers, this is your strength." The aliens in the chamber gasped, as if hearing a verdict. But the voice continued, colder. "Yet strength brings burden. You have slain the swarm's child, now face the parent." Every scanner lit red. From the depths of space, something moved. Larger than the Eternal ships, older, hungrier. A fortress the size of a moon, built from consumed stars and dead worlds. Dr. Zara Eth collapsed to her knees. "It's not them, it's worse, the source, the birthplace of the Devourers." On the bridge of the Valkyrie, Admiral Clark's eyes hardened. Then the real war begins now. The Kepler system trembled. The thing that emerged from hyperspace was not a ship. It was a fortress, the size of a moon built from the corpses of consumed stars and shattered worlds. Its surface crawled with machinery, alive with dark light. The source, the birthplace of the Devourers. Even the Eternal ships fell silent before it. On the Valkyrie's bridge, Admiral Ben Clark stood unmoving, eyes locked on the monster. Around him, silence. Even hardened soldiers forgot to breathe. Dr. Zara Eth whispered, feathers trembling, "It cannot be fought. That is the end." "No," Clark said, his voice iron. "That is the target." The plan, Ragnarok. General Kate Sullivan leaned over the tactical display, her jaw tight. "Its defenses are layered, shields thicker than planets, hull like mountains, but there's a weakness, power distribution. Take out the core and the fortress dies." Colonel Johnson was gone, Commander Rodriguez was gone, half their fleet was gone, and yet humanity still looked forward. Dr. Paul Martinez's eyes burned with manic fire. "We've been studying Devourer tech. Their strength is their unity. That fortress controls them all. If we introduce chaos at the heart, the whole swarm collapses." Clark nodded. "Then we don't defend, we attack. Operation Ragnarok." The name spread through the fleet. Ragnarok, the end of the world, or the beginning of something new. The assault begins. "All ships," Clark's voice thundered across every channel. "This is it, no retreat, no surrender. Either we end them here or we all burn. You wanted Deathworld warriors? You've got them, now fight like hell." The fleet surged forward. Humans and aliens side by side. Fragile scouts, massive carriers, destroyers held together by tape and prayers. The source opened fire. Beams the size of mountains lanced out, tearing ships apart like paper. Hundreds died in the first minute. Still, the fleet pushed closer. On the Thunderbolt, Captain Laura Stevens barked orders as explosions rocked her ship. "Stay in formation. Focus fire on the outer defenses." Lieutenant Commander Torres gritted his teeth. "Captain, if we stay in this long, we're dead." Laura's voice was calm. "Then we make our deaths count." Boarding the beast. The only way to kill the source was from the inside. Once again, boarding pods launched, streaking across space like burning arrows. Sergeant Cooper's replacement squad led one wave, with Sethar among them. The crystalline cadet had survived Rodriguez's sacrifice. Now his glow pulsed bright, fierce, unshakable. They slammed onto the fortress's hull. Sparks sprayed as drills bit deep. Doors blew open. Inside was hell. Corridors stretched like veins through a nightmare body. Walls whispered with the voices of billions consumed. Gravity twisted with each step. Machines larger than tanks guarded every path. "Stay close," the new squad leader roared. "Plant charges on everything that pulses." Sethar fired his rifle until his crystalline arms ached, his glow blazing. "For Rodriguez, for humanity," he shouted. Aliens around him echoed the cry. Chaos in the core. Meanwhile, Dr. Martinez led a team aboard the Valkyrie's science shuttle. He wasn't a soldier, but he carried humanity's deadliest weapon, the wildfire virus. "We inject it directly into the source's network," he explained, hands flying across consoles. "It'll flood their hive mind with chaos, force them to fight themselves." Zara Eth sat beside him, trembling. "And if it doesn't work?" Martinez grinned madly. "Then we die screaming, but hey, at least it'll be interesting." The turning point. The battle raged outside. The fleet bled. Every alien race lost ships, heroes, families, and yet something strange was happening. They weren't breaking. Altarian pilots executed suicidal dives. Centauran carriers shielded fragile Nexari frigates. Even peaceful Athatharans who had never fought flew into fire with human marines aboard their ships. They were learning, they were fighting like humans. On the Thunderbolt, Torres laughed through gritted teeth as he fired into a Devourer cruiser. "Look at them, they're getting it." Laura smiled grimly. "No, they're getting us." Inside the fortress, Sethar's squad reached the central chamber. It was vast, a cathedral of machinery with a pulsing black heart the size of a mountain, the source's core. "Charges here," the leader shouted. "Cover me." The defenders came in endless waves, metal beasts with claws like scythes. Marines and aliens fought side by side, blood and sparks mixing on the floor. Sethar's glow dimmed as he was slashed across the chest. He fell, but fired upward, blasting a machine apart before it crushed his comrade. A human marine dragged him up. "Stay with me, Crystal Boy." Sethar groaned, glowing faint but steady. "I am human enough." The virus. Martinez and Zara Eth reached the fortress's data stream, a river of pure black energy. It burned the air just to look at it. "This is it," Martinez whispered. "Their brain." He connected his device. The wildfire virus surged into the network. Nonsense, humor, illogic, chaos, human unpredictability. At first, nothing happened. Then the fortress convulsed. Ships outside broke formation. Weapons turned on allies. The hive mind screamed with static. "It's working," Zara gasped. But then the fortress adapted. It began to quarantine the virus, crushing it like an immune system, killing infection. "No," Martinez shouted, "it's not enough." The final choice. On the Valkyrie, Clark saw the readings. The virus was failing. The charges inside wouldn't reach the core. The fleet couldn't last another hour. There was one option left. He turned to General Sullivan. "We ram them." Her eyes went wide. "Admiral." "No arguments. We load every nuke, every charge, every reactor. We drive the Valkyrie straight into the source. A Deathworld ending for a Deathworld enemy." The bridge fell silent. Then Sullivan saluted. "Aye, Admiral." The sacrifice. The Valkyrie broke formation, engines blazing. It streaked toward the fortress like a falling star. Across the fleet, voices cried out. "Admiral, don't." Valkyrie fall back. But Clark ignored them. On the comm, his voice was steady. To all species of the Council, today you learned what it means to fight like humans, to bleed for strangers, to stand when you should fall. Whatever happens, remember this, you are no longer prey. You are predators. He looked one last time at the stars, and predators don't kneel. The Valkyrie slammed into the fortress's core. The explosion lit the void brighter than any sun. The end of the source. The shockwave tore through the Kepler system. Devourer ships screamed, their minds unraveling. One by one they went dark, collapsing into lifeless husks. The swarm was gone. The fortress was no more. The source was dead. Silence fell across the battlefield. And then, for the first time in living memory, the galaxy cheered. Aftermath. Weeks later, Harmony Prime glowed brighter than ever. Flags of dozens of species hung side by side. The council chambers were rebuilt, scarred but stronger. Elder Morton, older than all, whispered, "We were prey. Now we are something else." Kethvara stood beside Sethar, who now glowed brighter than ever despite the scars across his body. "You have changed," she said softly. Sethar shook his crystalline head. "No, I learned to be human, and now the galaxy has, too." Zara Eth ruffled her feathers, voice quiet. "What happens now? The Devourers are gone, the source destroyed, peace." General Sullivan's gaze was hard. "No, peace is never permanent. Something else will come, it always does. And when it does," she looked around the chamber at humans and aliens standing as one, "we'll be ready." Epilogue. At the edge of known space, a probe drifted. Its sensors flickered, its logs ancient. It recorded the final echoes of the source's death. Then faintly, it detected something else. A signal, older than the Devourers, colder than the Eternals. The probe sent its warning before it burned in silence. The galaxy was safe. For now,